Your Excellency, Ms. Annalena Baerbock, President of the 80th Session of the United Nations General Assembly, Mr. Courtney Rattray, Chef de Cabinet, Executive Office of the Secretary General, Mr. Emmanuel Ugirashabuya, Minister of Justice and also the Attorney General of the Republic of Rwanda, Excellencies, survivors of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, dear colleagues and friends, I'm Melissa Fleming and I lead the United Nations Department of Global Communications. It is an honor to welcome you to this annual commemoration marking the 32nd anniversary of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. Today's ceremony is organized by the United Nations Outreach Program on the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda in partnership with the Permanent Mission of Rwanda to the United Nations. We extend our deep gratitude to all survivors and their families joining us here in person and online on this solemn day. We gather here to honor more than 1 million women, children, and men murdered in the genocide. In just 100 days, families were shattered and communities devastated in one of the darkest chapters of human history. In the film that we have just seen, which was produced by the Aegis Foundation, Aegis Trust, which is the organization that safeguards the Kigali Genocide Memorial and its archives, an essential place of remembrance. We are grateful to the Permanent Mission of Rwanda for sharing it with us today and also for ensuring that these stories continue to reach the world and to strengthen our collective commitment to truth, to justice, and to reconciliation. As we reflect on this horrific tragedy, we are reminded that genocidal violence is never spontaneous. The genocide against the Tutsi emerged after decades of discrimination, of hate speech, and dehumanization. Its impact did not end in 1994. Survivors continue to carry profound emotional, psychological wounds, orphans who grew up without parents, widows forced to rebuild their lives, and women who endured sexual violence, many left with lasting health consequences. Their extraordinary courage and resilience compel us to remember not only the lives lost, but the lives forever changed. Remembrance is essential because it preserves the truth. By remembering, we confront denial and help future generations understand the dangers of hatred and division. The genocide against the Tutsis stands as devastating evidence of what happens when clear warning signs are ignored or dismissed. It is also a call to act, to stand against hate, and to ensure that genocide is never allowed to take place again. We honor the victims and survivors by remembering their humanity and reaffirming our unwavering commitment to strengthening global genocide prevention efforts. Today, we are privileged to welcome 2 survivors of the genocide, Mr. Marcel Mutsindashiaka, representing Ibuka, an association of genocide survivors, and Mr. Serge Gesore. We look forward to hearing your testimonies at our ceremony today. Your voices powerfully underscore why remembrance matters and why it is the responsibility of the international community and each of us to uphold the human rights and dignity of every person. So, as we move to the symbolic candle lighting, I would like to acknowledge the Kwibuka Flame of Hope, the permanent memorial installed in the North Garden of the United Nations. It was installed in 2024 and was a gift from the Republic of Rwanda. It stands as a tribute to the victims of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, and it is a reminder of our shared responsibility to confront hate before it takes root. It reflects the resilience and courage of the people of Rwanda and calls on all of us to speak out against discrimination, exclusion, and genocidal ideology wherever they appear. Earlier this morning, a wreath was laid at the memorial, which bears the inscription, Kwibuka 32, Remember, Unite, Renew. I now would like to invite our speakers to come forward and light a candle in honor of the victims of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. I invite Mr. Courtney Rattray, Chef de Cabinet, Executive Office of the Secretary General, Her Excellency Ms. Annalena Baerbock, President of the General Assembly, His Excellency Mr. Emmanuel Ugirashabuya, Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Republic of Rwanda, Mr. Marcel Mutsindashiaka, President of the Ibuka USA Survivor Association, Mr. Serge Gasore, survivor of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, and Mr. Salim Matuk, Charge d'Affaires, Permanent Observer, Mission of the African Union to the United Nations. If I may ask you to please turn on the candles in front of you, and those our guests of honor, once they're turned on, if you could put them in the glass vases in front of you. And everyone else to please turn on the candles in front of you and join us in a moment of silent reflection and solidarity with the victims of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. For those of you who are able, may I kindly ask you to stand. Thank you. Please take your seats. It is now my honor to welcome Mr. Courtney Rattray, Chef de Cabinet, Executive Office of the Secretary General, to deliver remarks on behalf of the Secretary General.
Madam President, Excellencies, dear friends, it is an honor to join you on this solemn occasion. I'm pleased to share the following message from the Secretary General. We gather today to remember and to reaffirm a shared responsibility. 32 years ago, Rwanda endured one of the darkest chapters in human history. In just 100 days, more than 1 million people were murdered, primarily Tutsi, but also Hutu and others who opposed the genocide. Children, women, men, entire families erased with unimaginable cruelty. Today we mourn the victims and honor their stolen dignity. We pay tribute to the survivors, whose resilience shows the strength of the human spirit. And we recall, with humility and shame, the failure of the international community, the failure to heed warnings, and the failure to take action when it would have saved lives. Excellencies, we must learn from these failures and from the evils that unfolded in plain sight. The genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda did not happen spontaneously. It was deliberate, premeditated, orchestrated. Long before the first blood was spilled, explicit propaganda flooded the airwaves, spewing lies, sowing hate, and stripping people of their humanity. Government policies were crafted to divide and to decide who belonged and who did not. Neighbors, friends, and even loved ones were made into enemies to be murdered. Words paved the way for mass atrocities. Despite unmistakable warning signs, the international community did not listen. Clear and present dangers were ignored, downplayed, dismissed. Today, digital platforms allow hate speech and incitement to violence to spread faster and farther than ever before, fueled by artificial intelligence and misguided algorithms. The ancient toxins of racism, misogyny, anti-Semitism, and anti-Muslim bigotry are once again corroding our political discourse. We hear outright denial. We hear distortion. We even hear the glorification of past genocides. The genocide against the Tutsi shows us where this path can lead, when words are weaponized and the world waits too long to respond. We must do more than remember the dead. We must protect the living by defending truth and rejecting narratives that make violence seem acceptable. We must stand firm in our shared values, live up to our commitments, and strengthen institutions that can help prevent catastrophe. This includes upholding the UN Charter and international law without exception. Peace cannot prevail if human rights are seen as conditional or selectively applied. Prevention of the gravest crimes cannot succeed when entire communities are being targeted because of who they are and violence meets with impunity. And we must rebuild trust, trust between communities, between nations, and between people and institutions meant to protect them. Rwanda's journey after the genocide shows that healing is possible when we uphold the truth, pursue real accountability and justice, invest in the social fabric, and choose reconciliation over revenge. Excellencies, dear friends, today and every day we must take action by confronting hate wherever it appears, by rejecting distortion and division, by strengthening education rooted in historical truth and human dignity, and by intervening before dangers spiral out of control. I call on all countries to become parties to the Genocide Convention without delay and to implement it fully. The United Nations stands with the people of Rwanda, and we stand with all those everywhere who refuse to surrender their future to fear, division, or silence. Let this day reaffirm our commitment to remember, to listen, and to act, with history as our guide and the prevention of genocide as our goal. Thank you.
I thank Her Excellency, the President of the General Assembly. Our next speaker is Mr. Marcel Mutsindashiaka, President of Ibuku, USA. At just 5 years old, he survived the genocide, where 25 members of his family were killed, an experience that shaped his life and instilled in him a profound sense of purpose. A Fulbright scholar and Yale World Fellow, Marcel Mutsindashiaka earned 3 graduate degrees from the Rochester Institute of Technology and the University of Cincinnati. Please join me in welcoming him.
Your Excellency, President of the United Nations General Assembly, Honorable Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Rwanda, Your Excellency, Chef de Cabinet, Your Excellencies, Ambassadors, distinguished delegates, fellow survivors, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Marcel Mutsindashiaka. I live in Ohio. My wife and 2 children are in the audience. I stand before you as a survivor of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, and also the president of Ibuka, USA. Ibuka means remember. This is a survivor-led association advocating for dignity, justice, well-being of survivors in the USA. Excellencies, Ibuka is honored to be invited as we mark 32 years since the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. As Ibuka, we thank UN for taking this important step in responsibly commemorating this history. Today, I speak on behalf of survivors, those who endured unimaginable loss and chose to rebuild their lives with dignity. And also, I carry a responsibility to give a voice to more than 1 million lives that were silenced. Excellencies, in 100 days, 1,074,017 Tutsis were killed, targeted simply for being Tutsi. It was systematically planned, it was intentionally organized, and people were hunted. Families were destroyed, children were left orphans, women were left widows, many females were raped. Entire families were erased. At 5 years old, my family was taken away. I lost my father, my 2 brothers, my sister, and 27 members of my extended family. I grew up learning to live with loss, but also how to rebuild with the strength and resilience. All survivors like me, including my fellow Serge Gasore, who is in audience, we were left to rebuild from nothing. The world knew. This very same institution knew. This was not a failure of knowing. It was a failure of acting. And the consequences were irreversible. Lives lost, families erased, generations changed forever. Today, survivors will still live with that cost 32 years later. More than half of survivors will live with trauma. Over a third will live with severe psychological distress. But the impact does not stop with the survivors. Recent research shows that trauma is carried across generations. It affects our children and descendants, shaping lives even decades later. Healing, therefore, is not only a personal journey, but it is a collective responsibility. At the same time, many survivors face ongoing challenges, health issues, economic hardship, and aging homes. And now survivors themselves are aging, becoming more vulnerable, and in greater need of support. Excellencies, the government of Rwanda has made a tremendous progress in justice, education, healthcare, and housing, which helped us survivors, but this responsibility should not rest only with Rwanda. It should be shared by the international community because it was watching. Genocide denial continues mostly those who participated in the genocide and their allies. For us survivors, it is another form of harm. It erases truth. It minimizes our suffering. In that region, around Rwanda, anti-Tutsi ideology continues to persist. It fuels violence. It threatens lives. International community still is watching. But for those affected, this is not something to watch. It is something to act on. At the same time, hate speech is spreading faster than ever before. As you know, in Rwanda in 1994, hate radio, RTLM radio, was just one radio and other few media houses. But today, the same danger has multiplied through social media, digital platforms, and artificial intelligence. Hate can reach millions in just seconds. Once again, should we watch or should we act? Excellencies, we recognize and appreciate the role of International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, ICTR. It laid an important foundation for justice and accountability. But justice, even today, remains incomplete. Genocide convicts are still at large, including in the region and in other countries where some live freely, where survivors, as we continue to carry the weight of loss, trauma, and daily hardship. For survivors, this is an ongoing wound. Justice delayed is justice denied. No genocidaire should find safe haven anywhere. Justice is not only about accountability, but it's also about memory. The archives of ICTR have not been transferred to Rwanda 32 years after genocide. For survivors, this is about dignity. These archives are truth. They are history. They must be preserved and meaningfully connected to Rwanda, where they belong. Excellencies, even after everything we lost, survivors, we chose to rebuild. We chose life. We chose unity. Some we chose forgiveness. We built families, economies, and communities. But that is the true image of resilience. But you know what? Resilience is not enough. Today I call the United Nations, this very same body, to bring suspects to justice, ensure no genocide convict finds safe haven anywhere, strengthen international cooperation to close the gap of incomplete justice, supporting survivors including long-term trauma and mental health needs, to protect truth, to confront denial, and stop hate before it becomes violence. Never again, it is not just a promise, it should be a responsibility to all of us, humanity, and history will remember not what we said, but what we chose to do. Thank you for standing with the survivors. Thank you for standing with Rwanda.
Thank you, Mr. Mutsindashiaka, for so movingly telling us your story and capturing the voices of other survivors, too. I now have the pleasure to introduce the Echo of Silence, The Power of Truth. This is a film in which young Rwandans use poetry to give voice to the silence left by the genocide against the Tutsi. It also honors the enduring power of truth in remembrance and healing. We are grateful to the permanent mission of Rwanda to the United Nations for making this film possible to share with you today.
We stand in the shadow of 32 years, not just as mourners, but as guardians of the light. We carry the names that were once whispered in the dark and stories that the fire tried to consume. But today, our voices are not just for grief. They are for a warning that we must never ignore.
Ururimi rurarya, rurakomeretsa, kandi rukica. Amagambo mabi yabibye inzigo mu mitima, ahinga urwango mu mwanya w'ubumwe. Inyigisho z'uburozi zabaye imbarutso y'umwijima, zihindura umuvandimwe umwanzi, zizimya itara ry'ubumuntu mu maso y'abari banyotewe amahoro.
Les mots ne sont pas de simples sons dans le vent. Elles sont des semences qui germent dans le silence. Quand la haine s'habille de discours et de slogans, elle prépare le terrain à l'indicible, à l'horreur. Se souvenir, c'est comprendre que le venin commence par la langue, avant de s'étendre par le feu et par le sang.
Today, the poison travels faster than before, hiding in screens, masked in pixels and likes, hate speech has found new corridors to roam, whispering old lies to a new generation. But we, the youth, are the filter and the shield. We refuse to let our platforms become battlefields.
Urubyiruko rw'u Rwanda ruriho ubu twahisemo kutazaba abasomyi b'ibinyoma. Ntabwo tuzemera ko amagambo akura abantu mu muryango cyangwa ngo akureho uwo muntu uwo ari we wese. Iyo uvuze nabi murumuna wanjye, uba uvuze nabi n'ejo hazaza hanjye. Twahisemo kuvuga ukuri kuko ariko konyine kudukiza.
Nous sommes les héritiers d'une résilience sans pareille. Porter les mémoires, c'est aussi porter la parole qui guérit. Refuser les mépris, dénoncer l'insulte et briser les stéréotypes. C'est ainsi que nous honorons ceux qui ne sont plus là. Que notre langage soit un pont et non un gouffre. Un mettant vers l'autre au-delà des blessures.
Let it be known. We see the signs and we speak up. When they dehumanize, we dignify. When they divide, we'll multiply our efforts for peace. Hate speech is the spark, and we are the rain. With the steady breath of education and empathy, we will extinguish the flames of division.
Kwibuka si ukureba inyuma gusa, ni no kureba imbere. Ni ukureba amaso ya mugenzi wawe ukamubwira mu mvugo yuje urukundo uti uriho kandi urabikwiye. Ntituzigera twemerera amagambo y'urwango kugaruka, kuko tuzi agaciro k'amahoro twasigiwe n'abazize akarengane.
Nous ne sommes pas seulement les gardiens du passé, nous sommes les architectes d'un avenir sans haine. Que nos bouches ne soient plus les vecteurs du mépris, mais les sources d'une vérité qui restaure et qui unit. Aujourd'hui, nous prenons l'engagement solennel. Notre parole sera la lumière et notre silence ne sera plus jamais une complicité.
Never again shall words be used to destroy.
Twamaganye imvugo zibiba urwango. Que nos voix sèment la paix.
Twibuke, twiyubaka.
Thank you again to the Mission of Rwanda for sharing the moving short film, The Echo of Silence, The Power of Truth. What an incredible antidote to hate speech. This was produced by the Rwandan peacebuilding and social justice organization, Never Again Rwanda. The film stands as a powerful testament to remembrance, courage, and resilience. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. At just 9 years old, Serge Gasore survived for weeks by fleeing and hiding as the genocide unfolded around him. Today, he shares his story around the world to help others understand the consequences of hatred and the urgent importance of preventing genocide alongside the testimonies of fellow survivors. He is also the author of My Day to Die, Running for My Life, a memoir that traces his journey of survival, resilience, and hope. Mr. Gasore, the floor is yours.
Your Excellency, President of the United Nations General Assembly, Honorable Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Rwanda, Your Excellency, Chef de Cabinet, Your Excellencies, Ambassadors, distinguished delegates, fellow survivors, ladies and gentlemen. Like many survivors, I speak today with pain, but also with purpose. With sorrow, but also with hope. That by sharing this testimony, we reaffirm our shared humanity. As introduced, my name is Serge Gasore. I'm married, and I have 3 children, 2 boys and 1 girl. I was born and raised in Bugesera district, Ntarama sector, about 20 miles south of Kigali, Rwanda's capital. When I was just 4 years old, I lost my mother, a loss that shaped my childhood long before the genocide. From that time on, I lived with my grandmother, Karen. She was a remarkable woman who shared stories with me at night, taught me imigani, the Kinyarwanda proverbs, filled with wisdom. She wanted me to grow, to learn, and to become someone meaningful in this world. A typical day often found me at her home, where I could play without a care in this world. From the time I was a small child, I was always running. Some days I ran to play, some days I ran to school, some days I ran for a prize. At that time, I believed the world was safe. I believed love would always protect me. I was just being a child. At 8 years old, still trying to understand the world, I did not know what hatred meant. I did not understand why people could turn against each other. I only knew fear when everything around me suddenly changed. Then came April 1994. That night, everything changed. Our neighbors, people we had lived with and trusted, turned against us. Houses were burning on the hill above our village. The sky was filled with smoke. The screams of those being killed echoed through the hills. As a child, I did not understand what was happening. I only knew that people were running, crying, and dying, and I had to follow, to hide, to survive. We ran to a place we believed would protect us. That place was Ntarama Catholic Church. I will always remember this church. It was not only a big church, but it was filled beyond capacity. Inside, people were packed tightly together, men and women and children. Outside in the yard, and even nearby classrooms, there were many more. As a child, everywhere I looked, I saw fear in people's eyes. I sat on the left side of the church in the front third row, closer to my grandmother. We moved toward the altar, joining others in prayer. In that moment, we believed that if we were going to die, we would go straight to heaven. that was the only comfort we had left. Then in an instant, everything changed. A grenade exploded. It struck my grandmother. She fell immediately, and her blood covered me. I can still taste her blood. I can still remember standing there, frozen, knowing I was next. As a child, I could not run, I could not scream, I could not understand. I could only stand there watching everything fall apart. In that moment, I stopped being a child. By April 15th, thousands had been killed in that church and around it. That day, I lost everything. I lost my grandmother, Karen. I lost my brothers, Fis, Eric, and Rukara. I lost family members, neighbors, and friends. The people who made my world feel normal were suddenly gone. The place that once felt home became a place of silence and loss. And then one day we heard something different. Gunfire. But this time it meant something else. It meant hope. The Rwanda Patriotic Front arrived. The killings began to stop. They told us, "You have been saved." Even hearing those words was difficult to believe because as a child, after seeing so much death, it was hard to imagine life continuing. After the genocide, life was not easy. Later, I found my father, who also struggled to survive. There were bodies everywhere. There was no food, no stability, and no sense of normal life. Inside me, there was fear, trauma, and broken trust. As a child, I was no longer thinking about playing or dreaming. I was thinking about who I had lost and how to live with memories that would not leave me. The nights were the hardest, the images came back, the fear came back, and the silence felt heavy because so many voices were missing. It was difficult to believe in people again. But slowly I began to rebuild through school, through sports. Sports became my refuge. Through running, not only hitting, but a way forward. What began as something simple became a path that opened doors, earned me a scholarship, and brought me to the United States for education. With time, support, and opportunity, I rebuilt my life. From surviving to rebuilding to standing here today, I became a proof that even in the darkest moment, hope can arise. Today, as a survivor and founder of Rwanda Children, a nonprofit organization serving over 1,500 people daily, I work to support genocide survivors and vulnerable families through hearing education and programs that promote unity, reconciliation, and dignity. My family and I now live in Texas, where we continue this mission of rebuilding lives and restoring hope. I speak today, I share my story to honor those who were killed. I speak the names of my grandmother, Caroline, my brothers, Fis, Eric, and Rukara, and many others whose voices were taken. Their absence is felt every day, but their memory continues to guide me. I stand here today so that they are not forgotten, and so that no child anywhere in the world has to experience what I lived through. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gasore, for sharing your stirring personal story. I think it will stay with all of us forever. I now have the honor of inviting Mr. Salam Matouk, Charge d'Affaires, Permanent Observer of the Mission of the African Union to the United Nations, to deliver his remarks.
Your Excellency, President of the General Assembly, Honorable Minister of Justice of the Republic of Rwanda, Your Excellency Chief du Cabinet, dear survivor Sergio Gozari, survivors of the genocide, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of His Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, and I quote, April 7 brings us together, once again in remembrance and solemn reflection. Today we commemorate the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, a time of memory and reflection that calls upon Rwanda, Africa, and the entire world to remember, to reflect, and to act. In 1994, more than 1 million lives were destroyed in a systematically planned and deliberately targeted act of violence against a human group. These men, women, and children had names. They had faces, families, and dreams. Everything was taken from them, even their humanity. This day is not merely a moment of memory. It's a moment of truth. This commemoration transcends the borders of Rwanda and Africa. It is recognized by the international community as a day of reflection. To reflect is to confront not only the causes of genocide, but also the failures that allowed it to occur. The genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda was not only the product of hatred, it was also the result of indifference and inaction. These lessons have profoundly marked the African conscience. They have helped to establish and structure the African peace and security architectures around a clear principle: never again. It is in this spirit that Africa chose to act in Sudan, Somalia, and other contexts to address its crisis and to fully assume its responsibilities. It is also in this spirit that the African Union appointed a special envoy for the prevention of genocide, affirming that vigilance cannot be occasional. It must be permanent and structural. Today, nearly 3 decades later, this momentum must be renewed. The fundamental principle of multilateralism are being tested both in Africa and elsewhere. The norms designed to protect people are being weakened, and the red lines are becoming uncertain. At the same time, new threats are emerging. The normalization of hate speech, including in digital spaces, the denial of other, political polarization institutionalized as a model of governance. These dynamics undermine the very foundation of peaceful coexistence. But let us be clear. Africa will never again tolerate organized hatred being turned into a political project. In the face of these challenges, our response must be decisive. The African Union remains steadfast in its determination to prevent mass atrocities, combat hate speech, and promote culture of tolerance, dialogue, and responsibility. Excellencies, nearly 3 decades after this tragedy, Rwanda demonstrates a remarkable trajectory of resilience and transformation. Guided by a clear national vision and the active engagement of its people in shaping their destiny, the economy today ranks among the most dynamic economies on the continent, achieving a GDP growth of 11.2% in the fourth quarter of 2025. This achievement stands as both a tribute to the memory of those who lost their lives and a restoration of dignity for the survivors. The consolidation of the country's institution and its active engagement in peacekeeping operations, notably in Sudan, South Sudan, Mali, and Mozambique, reflect a determined commitment to transform suffering into a force for renewal. This experience reminds us of an essential truth. History is not fate. It can be transformed through the will of the people. I wish to pay special tribute to the women of Rwanda, who left alone in the face of the unspeakable. They rebuilt lives, raised families, with courage and dignity, laid the foundations for the Rwanda we know today. Their commitment is also reflected in their active participations in the institutions where they contribute fully to governance, reconciliation, peace building. In many ways, they embodied the resilience of a people and the promise of a reconstructed future. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this day is one of reflection. It is also a day of resolve. To remember is not enough. To remember is an obligation to act, an obligation to prevent, an obligation to reject, everywhere and always, the logic of hatred, exclusion, and division. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda was not merely an African tragedy. It was a failure of humanity as a whole. Today, our responsibility is clear: to ensure that indifference and silence never again allow irreparable to occur. Africa, strengthened by its lessons and experience, will continue to fully assume its role in defending peace, protecting human dignity, and upholding the ideal of living together in harmony. End of quote. I thank you.
I thank His Excellency Mr. Matuk, and I now have the honor of welcoming His Excellency Mr. Emmanuel Urashabuya, Minister of Justice and the Attorney General of the Republic of Rwanda, who has traveled from Kigali to be with us today.
Your Excellency, President of the United Nations General Assembly, Your Excellency, Chef de Cabinet, Your Excellency in charge of the African Union, Mr. Serge Gasore, the survivor who just testified here, the President of Ibuka, Your Excellencies, Ambassadors, distinguished delegates, survivors, Rwandans and friends of Rwanda, good morning. Rwanda really appreciates your presence today, and we thank you all for working with us over the past 32 years. Your accompaniment is deeply appreciated. Thank you, Marcel, Serge, for your testimony, and to all the survivors in this room for your resilience. It is to you survivors that we turn to when we asked the unimaginable, which was forgiveness. You walked the last 32 years in reconciliation and resilience, and you are the backbone of our country's strength and renewal. Excellencies, we have had many testimonies in this hall over the years, and today we just heard the testimony of Serge. In Rwanda, we have lived these experiences alongside our survivors. The past 32 years have been a journey of strength and resilience. We have made some progress, but we still have a lot to do. Excellencies, the genocide against the Tutsi is a stark reminder of the horrors that can unfold when hatred, prejudice, and division prevail. It is our solemn duty to remember the victims, honor their resilience, and ensure that their stories are forever etched into our collective memory. By doing so, we not only pay tribute to those who suffered, but also lay the foundation for preventing such atrocities in the future. The scars of the dark period still echo through Rwanda's history, yet the resilience and determination of our people have shaped a new narrative of healing, reconciliation, and progress. The genocide against the Tutsi, like all the other genocides, was meticulously planned over several years. Its roots trace back decades before independence, marked by dehumanization, anti-Tutsi violence, and the entrenchment of divisive ideologies. Colonial policies institutionalized identity categories, fostering mistrust, discrimination, and propaganda that dehumanized Tutsis as outsiders and enemies. Children were taught distorted histories, and discrimination became normalized in schools and communities. By the late 1950s and early 1960s, violence against the Tutsis had begun, forcing many into exile. From 1990 to 1994, extremist ideology intensified through media, such as some magazines called Kangura and RTLM, spreading hatred and inciting violence. Public figures openly called for extermination, and the groundwork for genocide had been laid long before 1994. At the heart of this genocide lies the failure of the international community to act despite very clear and early warnings. I'll just give one example. General Romeo Dallaire, who was the force commander of the United Nations Assistance Mission for Rwanda, repeatedly alerted the UN to preparations for mass killings. In January 1994, that was 3 months before the genocide commenced, he requested authorization to seize weapons stockpiles intended for militias. The request was denied. Instead, General Dallaire was instructed to take the information to the then Rwandan government, which had purchased the machetes and involved in planning the ultimate genocide. So this was the order that, the instructions that General Dallaire got. These warnings were ignored, of course, with catastrophic consequences. Rwandans continue to ask why such clear signs were not acted upon. Were the lives of the victims not worth saving? This question remains deeply painful. Excellencies, it is equally troubling that some countries continue to provide a safe haven to genocide suspects. Rwanda's position is very clear. Those responsible must be extradited to Rwanda or prosecuted wherever they are found. After all, we are told and informed by the Genocide Convention that genocide is a crime that transcends borders and justice must follow suit. We are also confronted with the persistence of genocide denial and distortion. Denial is not an opinion. It is actually the final stage of genocide. It erases the truth, rehabilitates perpetrators, and deepens the wounds of survivors. Today, denial finds new life through social media and digital platforms. We've also had artificial intelligence, which is making it even worse. Disinformation spreads rapidly, often sometimes disguised as a legitimate discourse, free speech, making it even more dangerous and harder to counter than in the yesteryears. Your Excellencies, in parts of our sub-region, genocide ideology continues to manifest, unfortunately. Armed groups such as FDLR remain active, sustaining dangerous narratives and threatening lives. Hate speech targeting Tutsi communities is once again being normalized. Public statements echo the rhetoric heard before 1994. This is very real and dangerous. One of the striking examples, among many others, that occurred last year in our region was when, in a national television in our region, broadcast aired an interview with a military spokesperson who delivered an openly anti-Tutsi message, urging citizens not to marry Tutsi women. Such targeting of women, casting them as unworthy of marriage or social belonging, has historically been a precursor to ethnic cleansing and mass violence. Other public figures have reinforced these exclusionary narratives, labeling Tutsi communities as foreigners or enemies in that region of ours. The examples of such hate speech are abound, rampant, and publicly available for anyone who wants to see what is happening. Excellencies, these words are not harmless. They echo the rhetoric that fueled the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994 and serve as a warning that hate, if left unchecked, can escalate into atrocities. The international community must remain vigilant, recognize early signs of incitement, and take action before history repeats itself. Rwanda witnessed similar propaganda before 1994, systematically spread through RTLM, the hate radio, and extremist publications such as Kangura. These outlets warned Hutu men against relationships with Tutsi women. Actually, I think that was the first commandment in the 10 commandments that were there, the Hutu 10 commandments, and portrayed the Tutsi community as a collective enemy. Hate speech is never spontaneous. It is deliberate, normalized, repeated, and broadcast, cultivating an environment where violence can later be framed as self-defense or a patriotic duty. As the British journalist Lindsay Hilsam, the only English-speaking journalist in Rwanda during the genocide, notes, and I quote what she says, "You cannot be objective about genocide. It's not on the one hand the victims are good, and on the other hand they are bad. Nor can you be neutral about denial or those who promote genocide. To deny genocide is to deny our humanity." Excellencies, we must recall June 18th, the International Day for Elimination of Hate Speech, alongside other key days of remembrance, such as the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda on April 7th, the International Holocaust Remembrance Day on January 27th, and the day of commemoration for the Srebrenica genocide in Bosnia on July 11th. These commemorations should not be merely symbolic. They should remind us that hatred, prejudice, and denial are never abstract. They have real human consequences. These commemorations honor the victims, preserve memory, and serve as a call to action. The testimonies from the Holocaust, the genocide in Bosnia, as well as the genocide against the Tutsis in Rwanda, like we heard today from Serge, must not remain confined to these souls. They are reminders of the human cost of indifference and foundation of our collective strength to fight evil. We must therefore actively confront genocide ideology, denial, and hate speech with unwavering determination. These toxic elements are the seeds of the darkest depths of human cruelty. Let us stand united against them, ensuring that history's painful lessons guide us toward a future of safety, justice, and dignity for all. I thank you.